Hey BookTube, it is time for a literary update on Jackie's Literary Corner. So, I just finished a book last night, although technically it would be like, um, early this morning. Like it was, I think 2 something by the time I finished it. But, that is, it's called The Keeper of the Lost Cities, Book 5, Lodestar, which I guess it doesn't have the in front of the word. But, I wrote the Lodestar on my document where I list what I've been reading this year. So I didn't realize, I thought it was the Lodestar, but I guess it's just Lodestar. This is, like I said, the 5th book in the series. I guess I can't really say a lot about it because I don't know if any of you guys have read the series. But it was really good. I'm still continuing to have a good time with the series. A lot is happening. These kids, I feel like Sophie and her friends are being forced to grow up a lot because they're dealing with very adult issues. It's all about like interspecies or interracial. There's a word for it. Engagement or working together. There is a word I'm trying to think of, but basically she's dealing with she's kind of got in the middle of a lot of politics because of course these two groups, the Never Seen and the what is the other group? I forgot. Black Swan. That's what they're called. The Never Seen and Black Swan are kind of forcing her to be put in the middle of this without her consent. I mean, she was just created and given these powers, and she gets a new power. She realizes she learns that she has another power that hasn't been revealed to her yet because they weren't sure if she would want it or if she could handle it, but they realize that it could potentially help their cause. And then in the fourth, and of course this ends, this begins where the 4th book left off, where the whole consequences of what happened in the 4th book with Keith and everything. And he's really, all I'm going to say is, that he's really deep in the enemy territory and they don't know if they can trust him. Which, and maybe because I'm biased and I'm the reader, but I almost was like, come on, of course you can trust him just because he joined Team Bad Guy. Okay, so does not mean that he's a bad guy himself. But of course, I think Grady has trust issues because after what happened with Brant, I don't think he's gonna trust any guy with his child. And then of course Fitz and Sophie continue to have their cognate bond and improve it. Although that doesn't play as much of a role or it becomes like background. It's no longer, it's still important, but it's not on the forefront of the story anymore. And one of the things I really like about this series is that the parents are actually involved and they actually have shown to care. Like, Sophie gets grounded so many times because of these reckless decisions she makes and these actions she chooses to do without consent of the adults because she feels she's tired of waiting around and doing nothing and just being told to be patient, in that you can't do right now, you shouldn't be doing this because you need to leave this to the grown-ups, or this is too dangerous, or it's too risky, and and because she's an impulsive person, or elf I should say, she does a lot of crazy things that get her grounded because it causes her parents to worry. And I love that. I love how the parents are involved in the story, that they actually care and they're not just absentee. It's like, you gotta wonder in like YA and middle grade fantasy, do the parents not care? Do they not realize that their kid is gone and their kid is doing stupid and dangerous things? And I know a lot of these stories will involve a lot of middle grade is portal fantasy where characters will go to another world and they want to focus on the characters being in that other world, but sometimes it'll be kind of nice to see that the parents do care and the parents are worried. But although maybe they do, because sometimes I don't read a lot of middle grade anyway, to be fair, so maybe I'm totally off on this. But I know in YA it feels like that. It feels like the parents are barely involved, or they don't care, they don't respect their kids and consider them, like, give them credit for saving the world, even though it's like, you're 16, 17 years old and you did all this. But then, of course, it's fantasy and it's fiction, so, I feel like they want to prop up the kid, prop up the reader who was in that age to say, oh, you could potentially do this, or give them an ego boost a little bit. Be like, say you are capable, even if you're just a kid, you could be capable of doing something like this. But again, I like how they are involved in this. Like, they care. They're not just there, or they're not just to be like the person that kept the secret from the child, and and that they let the kid down because they kept the secret. It seems like they don't trust their own kid. Sophie's parents and Fitz's parents actually care about them and want to protect them. We also kind of resolve the whole situation with Morella, and I feel bad because before, when she first started acting kind of mean to them and being all like, "You left me out, so I'm gonna treat you like crap," and hang out with the bully, the girl who's the bully in the school that I didn't like before, but now she's my new bestie. But then, you learn by the, I can't remember if we learned by the, I think we learned by the fourth book, there is a very good reason why Morella is a little hurt and angry at them. And it's almost a reason that I can kind of relate to. Not that I was ever in a situation where I feel like my friends abandoned me and were not there for me when I've had a similar problem to hers. But yeah, I can kind of understand, I can understand her feelings, and I probably would feel that way too. I feel like my problem, my personal situation is just as hurtful, and even if it's not as big as what Sophie's doing, even if it's not saving the world, and plus Morella had no idea what Sophie was doing. All she saw was that she was being left out of their group of friends, and I mean, she had some idea of what was going on, I think, but not a whole lot about what Sophie was dealing with. It's driving me crazy, like, not of like this whole relationship drama. The good news, it doesn't, as always, it still is not at the forefront of the story, but it does play a role because Grady does not trust Keith, and Grady and Sandra decide to have the talk with Sophie, which drives her crazy. I feel so bad for her because she's so traumatized by her dad and her bodyguard talking about boys with her and being like, I don't trust this kid with you, and he's gonna break your heart. And yes, we support who you're with, but we want you to be careful, and I'm going to be very interrogative and protective father. And it's just very funny and awkward, that whole scene when they're trying to talk to her about it and she's so embarrassed. But I can understand why Grady is reacting the way he is, and I think every father would do that, would go through the talk with their daughter. Now, I didn't go through that because I didn't date a lot growing up, so I didn't have to deal with that. And I don't know if I'll have to deal with anything like that because I'm like 30 years old. So I'm not a kid, I'm not a teenager. But I mean, I know my dad still loves me and will still want to protect me. So who knows? I will still, get the. But then again, I'm pretty sure my dad knows that I'm not totally oblivious to boys and how they think and stuff. But yeah, I just felt very sympathetic for her in that scene. Once again, the books continue to be very fast-paced, but I find that with, very much with YA middle grade. Maybe not so much YA, because there are YA books that can seem much more slower paced. And in fact, that's part of why I DNF Sisters of the Winterwood, because it felt so slow. And it's weird because I was watching one of Emily Fox's videos where she was talking about how with library books, I mean, how like she feels like when it's her own, what did she say? Actually, she was saying how like she feels like when it's her own book, when she buys it, she's more inclined to read it. And normally, I'm the opposite, where I am more inclined to read if it's a library book because I want to be able to return a book within 2 weeks, at least return one book, if anything. But if I'm not, it seems like, and maybe because I've come to be more comfortable with DNFing books. But now, unless I'm actually enjoying the book, it takes me a lot longer. And also with the library, because I want to at least be able to give the library one book back on the due date, I feel pressure. And it's even harder when it's a book I'm not liking as much. Okay, have fun. But anyway, this series continues to be great. It's a fun series. I think the only people who might not like it are people that just can't get into middle grade, because it is a little bit more juvenile. Like I said, I feel like this is like with Harry Potter, it's trying to grow with its audience, and it's kind of blurring the lines a little bit and going into more YA territory. Like the first few books felt middle grade, but then as Sophie gets older, because I think she's either 14 or 15 in this book. I'm not sure, because in the last book we kind of find out that her age, the age she thought she was in this world, was inaccurate. Like she thought she was younger than her actual age. But elves, their aging is different. Like they don't get old and wrinkly. I mean, they get old, but they don't get all wrinkly and die of disease and stuff. Oh, so one of the things in this book that reminds me, one of the things that bothered me, and I know this is fiction and this is fantasy, but I noticed that in a book like this, when we're dealing with fantasy creatures that that think like humans, they criticize humanity a lot. Like, I know there are a lot of negative things about humanity, and I imagine the way things are going politically right now, people are feeling really crappy about humanity right now, but it's very interesting that they're constantly bashing humans and talking about how we start wars and like all the negatives. And I just read Gulliver's Travels, which kind of at one point did it too, particularly in the last section where they talk about how horrible we are to horses and how horrible we are to each other. And I'm feeling a little like, okay, we're not that bad. Okay, I know we screw up a lot. We have wars, we have pollution, and there are a lot of negatives. There are negatives, but there are also positives to humanity too. But of course, that this society does have its own flaws, like the whole mating, like assigning you a mate and focusing more on genetics and compatibility. I feel like is very. It's kind of just. I feel like it's something that you would see in a dystopian too. But I feel like it's a very flawed system, because, you don't always fall in love with someone you're compatible with or your genetics work really well with that person. And that's definitely one of the flaws. And then, of course, the major issue that comes out throughout this whole series that Shannon Messenger explores is the idea of that the elves are so, like, they're very much peace loving species, and now they're in the middle of a war, and these people are trying to. It's annoying that my hair is doing what it's doing right now. They are ignoring. The council is ignoring all the negative stuff that's going on because they want peace so badly that they're dismissing the fact that it's almost impossible to be completely at peace in your society. I mean, the other races or other species are not going to be 100% happy with the elves being like, we're superior because we have all this power, we're more intelligent than you. And it's very flawed way of thinking, and I feel like they're in the middle of a war. They can't just ignore that. And I mean, and now they are starting to, with the whole, they're training these kids in their, everyone else in their all their people, not just the kids but the adults too, to learn defensive skills. Yet, like, at the same time, like, Sophie's a little nervous about that because she feels like it's like handing someone a gun that's not trained to use it. Which, yeah, is definitely not a good idea. But I also feel, and it's just very interesting commentary. But, so, I really am liking this series. I can't wait to read book 6, Nightfall. And I just realized last night that my library might not have all the books in the series, so I might have to buy some of the books just so I can finish the series. That's what is really frustrating, because I know that, like, my mom does not want me to continuously buy books. She because, and I'm hoping I'll get a shelf this Christmas. But I don't know if that will happen, because I think my mom's hoping that if I don't have enough shelf space, I won't buy as much books. But I mean, but I know she doesn't want me to continuously buy books all the time, and the problem is that if it's not at the library, I want to finish the book. I love it. I'm enjoying the series. I want to keep going with it. But if it's not at the library, then how am I supposed to keep going with it? And I can't just, and I don't have a gift card to download books to my Nook. And I'm not gonna, so I'm kind of in a situation where if I want to keep going with the series, I'm gonna need to buy it. And I have never seen it at the used bookstore. So, I mean, if it was there, I would jump at the chance to get it because it would be much cheaper to buy it, but they're not there, and I can't control that. But I want to keep going with the series because I am enjoying it. So, I'm gonna have to buy them, and, when I'm done with them, maybe I'll give them to the bookstore so that maybe the Gibbons bookstore will have them. The problem with that is I feel guilty because it won't be the whole series. I feel like I might need to buy the whole series. I mean, if I buy, who knows, maybe, although if I buy it, I can always give it to the boys, my nephews, even if it's focused on a girl main character. I can always think about that, because I'm wondering, is my sister the type of person who would be like, I don't want you to give him a book where the main character is a girl. I want you to give him a book where the main characters are boys. I mean, although, who knows, maybe if they have another child, a third child, maybe it will be a girl, which I'm secretly hoping, even though they'll have another child, and that it will be a girl. So that I can pass on all my girl books that are typically meant for girls, or certain, like, a girl would appreciate it more. But anyway, yeah, so I might have to buy the next set of books after books 7, 8, and I think book 8 is the one that just came out, so I'll have to get book 7. I mean, book 7, I'll have to look that up. I don't know what number is the next one that just came out. But I know this is book 5. So I'll have to look up, because I know she just came out with one. And I'll have to keep an eye on that. Although, if they have all the books in the series, maybe they'll have the rest of the series. Well, you may be able to get copies of the rest of the series, because it would be like, what's the point of having the whole series if you don't have all the books in the series at the library? Okay, but anyway, so now that I finished that, I'm currently reading the next library book I'm focusing on is Practical Magic by Alice Hoffman. This is the and Rules of Magic was the prequel to this book. I had read this book years ago, and I remember liking it, but I knew that it was different from the movie. But then reading it now, I'm realizing it really is different. Because, like, the characters, again, they're doing Hollywood. When they made that movie, they did that thing where it's like, oh, we gotta make the characters more likable because people can't handle unlikable characters. They have to be nice. They'd be a lot nicer than they are, really. Although I do enjoy the movie. It is it's hard, but the characters are so, like, a lot meaner in the book. And we really see Jillian's selfishness and vanity. Like, I mean, it was there in the movie because, but, like, the scene in the movie when after, Gary has shown up and, figures out, okay, something's going on here and they're trying to do, and he leaves because he's like, you better get a lawyer because he has suspicions that they did kill Jimmy Angelo. So he leaves, and which results in a fight between Sally and Jillian because Jillian's like, we need to stick to the story and we can't tell him what really happened because then, one of them could get arrested for killing him because they drugged him, which resulted in his death. And Sally is so, and Jillian is like, I'm so sorry, I'm such a mess, I'm so stressed out, and, complaining and talking about how upset she is, how distraught she is because she murdered. And it's a different kind of feeling than what is going on because, Sally's like, that's all you can think about, you're so selfish, and, you, and, so it's kind of there, but it's a little different because in the book, Jillian seems, we see more of Jillian's selfishness in the book than in the movie. And we only see it a little bit in the movie. And then actually turns out that in the movie, Sally is the one who puts the stuff that they kind of drug him with into his alcohol. And I can't think of what it's called. I don't think it's called Nightshade, but in the book it's called, they say they give him Nightshade, or Jillian gives him Nightshade, but I don't think it's called that in the movie. It's Sally who pours a lot in there, a lot of that stuff, which results in him getting killed. But in this one, Sally's not with her when Jimmy dies. So it's really, actually, it's like Jillian is the one who did it. Well, in the movie, it's Sally who accidentally kills him. So I thought that was interesting. Which, I don't know if I should have said that. Like, that could kind of spoil it. But this is an old book, so you know what? I'll just warn you guys in the little, at the bottom, that there's spoilers for Practical Magic. And Sally's daughters, first of all, in the movie, Sally's daughters are switched. Because, first of all, they're a lot younger than the movie. We don't see them grow up to be, like, 16, 17, 18, like we do in the book. But in the movie, they're a little bit younger. And, Antonio is the older one. And Kylie is the younger one. It looks like. Or Kylie is the older one, and Antonia is the younger one. While in the book, it's the opposite. And neither one of them's a blonde. One of them's a redhead. Kylie looks like Jillian. Which, I think they did that in the movie on purpose, because in the book, Kylie really does identify with Jillian and connects with her and is like, I want to be just like her. Which is what I'm reading right now. And Kylie's obsessed with her aunt. Jillian wants to be exactly like her, wants to follow in her footsteps. Which really upsets Sally because it's like she feels like Jillian has taken her daughter away from her. And she is a bad influence. She's a serial dater. She's had 3 marriages. She's a bit of a flirt. She has a tattoo. She has such a really a bad reputation. And I think Sally is worried that Kylie's gonna be just like her. And it really, but the problem is that Kylie does not see that, doesn't see it as a big deal. And Kylie and Tanya are such brats in the book. Like, I mean, there's a tiny bit of it, but it's understandable. Their reactions in the movie, because their mom leaves them, does not tell them or does not explain things to them. Like, they don't understand why her mom no longer performs magic. Like, or why she doesn't fight the bullies that are constantly like, you're a witch, witch, witch. And also, they end up leaving the aunt's house in the book. They go to New York, which actually, I think was where Francis and Jet and their brother lived at first. But then they end up like getting attached to I can't remember her name. I already forgot it. Their own aunt who raises them and teaches them magic. So it's like they do the same thing with the girls, with Sally's daughters. Jet and Francis are not very good at raising kids. They spoiled Sally and Jillian, and they were spoiling Kylie and Antonia. Although Sally turned out all right. But I want to smack those girls. I mean, they are so ungrateful and so disrespectful to their mother. Like, Antonio is just, like, so, all they care about is the fact that Sally is embarrassing them, which, yeah, typical teenagers. Although to be fair, I don't think all teenagers are like this. Not all teenagers act like brats and are ungrateful to their parents and rebel, but I think a lot of teenagers go through that phase of rebelling against their mom, and they experience a cooler mom or dad, and if such a cool person comes in their lives, all of a sudden it's like, I want to be just like them. They look up to them, even though they're a bad influence. At the time, they don't see that, and that's what's going on with Kylie. She does not realize that Jillian is not the best influence, that Jillian is not someone to emulate. And I mean, even Kylie's friend Gideon gets really mad when, like, Jillian gives her a makeover as a birthday present. And Gideon, at first he's stunned because she's so beautiful and glamorous looking all of a sudden. And then, like, he gets to his senses and realizes, oh my god, I just lost my best friend. He's realized this represents the fact that Kylie is changed. And of course she does not see it. She thinks this is for the better because now boys are going to check me out, and I'm going to be no longer under Antonia's shadow, which I get I get having a sister, feeling overshadowed by a sister and wanting to be your own person and wanting to be popular and not be the sisters that is not cool. And it is interesting that Antonia and Kylie are kind of reversed. Their roles seem to be reversed. Like, now Kylie is the one to stand out. She's the one shining. And Antonia's the one in the shadow. She's not as cool anymore. She's not as popular anymore. And then on top of that, the teacher that she has a crush on is hitting on Jillian when he sees her, because of course Jillian has this aura about her. Like, she's this beautiful, like, all the boys want her. Which that's another thing that they do include in the movie, but it's not as prominent. And now, granted, this movie came out in the 90s, so I don't know, maybe they were trying to be careful and not include everything. Which, I mean, it's not a surprise, really, because movies, when they do a movie version of a book, although this book isn't that long, they can't include everything. They have to change things, and certain things don't translate well on the screen. So the book is definitely a little bit more edgier than the movie. And I don't know how I feel because I still really love the movie. But the book is a very interesting story, and watching these relationships that are very, I feel like, are relatable, minus the magic stuff because not everyone's a, but because not everybody's a not everybody's a Wiccan, not everyone practices witchcraft. But I feel so bad for Sally, and she's the one I can relate to the most. I feel like. But I feel really bad for her because she's losing it. She's trying to be a good mother, and she's trying not to fall apart, and she's trying to protect and take care of her kids. Because I mean, she lost her husband. She's a single mom, and she feels like, and the aunts aren't very helpful because they're not good at raising kids. They let just like with Sally and Joan, they let Kylie and Antonia get away with whatever they want, and which is funny because they are judging Jillian and Sally, like feeling like are disappointed at both the ways that they went. But if you think about it, it's kind of their own. They're not entirely blameless in the paths that Sally and Jillian took. But and they influenced, and then like on top of that, her sister, people like her, Jillian, they can't see in front of their own feet. They can't see past their own noses. They're so caught up in their own suffering. Granted, yeah, I mean, she murdered someone, and it's understandable that, yeah, she's not going to want to get arrested. She's terrified and stressing out. But at the same time, Jillian is always like this. It's always all about her, and she dug her own grave, I feel like. She got herself into this mess by dating all these guys and not being careful. And I'm not saying you have to be super cautious. Like, Sally's lifestyle is not that much better. I mean, because she's not living her life. She's just hiding, which they include, again, that's another thing that they include in the movie, but it's not as, I feel like it's not as strong, and it's not as strong as it is in the book. But yeah, the biggest thing I noticed is that the characters are not as likable in the book as they are in the movie. And certain things are not as strong in the movie as they are in the book, like Jillian's selfishness and Sally's desperation to have a good relationship, trying to protect her kids, but failing miserably at it because she closed herself off and is trying too hard to make sure her kids don't end up like the aunts or like Jillian. She's desperate for normal, and I always compared Sally's character to Piper Halliwell on Charmed, very similar, because Piper also wanted a normal life away from magic. She tried really hard to do that. Hopefully, and I feel like when you try too hard to protect your kids and make sure they don't make those mistakes and get them a normal life, if you try too hard, then I feel like the more the kids are going to rebel against that. And the idea of magic and getting revenge and being like sexy or cool and or having fun with your life in this way is very appealing. And it's, if the more you tell someone no and the more you try to restrain them from, the more they'll be drawn to it. So I feel like Sally's problem is that she tries so hard to protect her kids that she like tries too hard to do that, while Jillian is the opposite. But it's definitely an interesting. Oh, and the other thing, the other issue is, again, Hoffman's writing feels very very tell rather than show. And sometimes, although I do question myself sometimes because she sells really well and she does a good job and her stories are interesting so far. But it feels very tell. This book feels very tell. Like she's telling about the characters and what's going on with their lives. I mean, you still have like scenes and stuff, and it's not as bad as Gulliver's Travels, but it's still, like I said, it feels like we're getting explained a lot of things rather than shown things. Still a good book. Still, I'm still enjoying it. I'm still entertained by it. Okay, so I'm also I read a little bit more of Elantris because I wanted to read in the next 3 days. I wanted to read a little bit more of it. Since I don't get to read a lot of it at work during my breaks. Serene, the princess, continues to, like, she tries to make herself small, pretend to be small and dumb, and so that the king won't take notice of her, and she's trying to find out what's going on, and she's also seen Hethren, I don't know if I'm saying it right, the priest, and she's suspicious of him, and he does seem to have grand plans, like, he has intentions, and he has this follower, Dylaf, I don't know how to say it again. That's like I said, in fantasy, it's, as I said in the previous video, when I was updating you guys, I can kind of understand how it's hard to pronounce names in fantasy to figure out how they're pronounced. Because unless you hear someone say it, like in an audiobook version, or hear the author pronounce it, you have to figure it out on your own, and sometimes you don't know spelling-wise what their intentions are on how to pronounce it. They're working together, and he believes his whole zealous behavior could be good, but he also needs to be like, I can control this before he lets his zealous behavior get out of hand. And Raoden, again, another one, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right. He is once again trying to find answers, and this new guy arrived in Elantris. This new older man arrived in Elantris, and he decides to interact with him and make friends with this guy, who is I can't remember what he said he was, but he essentially makes things. So they asked him to make shoes for the people, so that when they're walking around the city. So I'm thinking he's going to try to slowly win people's favor and do things for them to make, to solve their problems, so that he'll be loved by the people, these people, these zombie-like creatures. Okay, so, those are the books I mostly focus on. I did read a little bit more of Rose Madder. What was the last thing I read? Okay, so Norman believes he's getting closer to Rosie, and and they were remembering an instant with someone, with a black man, I believe, that supposedly robbed a liquor store. And of course, Norman thinks, oh, he did it, because he's a black man. And Norman, you just want to strangle the man. He has such horrible, disgusting ways of looking at the world. And he's so racist and sexist, and it's just, you want to punch him in the face. He's such a horrible human being. And I got a long way to go, so I'm wondering if because he says he's getting, he's only a few hours away from Rosie. But I don't know if he really is. Maybe he's not, because he got a long way to go with this story. So we haven't gone into, because it implies that she's going to maybe go into the world of the painting, and that's how she's going to escape him. Things are going well with that guy, with the guy she goes on a date with. But Norman needs to die. I can't stand him. I hate him so much. And his way of thinking is just... he's such a horrible human being. And like I said, racist, sexist pig. And you can't stand him. And his way of thinking... him thinking that automatically being, using the N-word to describe this black man, and automatically being oh, he robbed the liquor store. Of course, surprise, surprise. you just hate this guy. You know, I mean, King is really good at writing characters that you just hate, that you just can't stand. And, like, it's not even, I mean, I'm sure some of his bad guy characters, like, you love to hate, you secretly may actually like them, but, you know, there are characters that you also just plain hate. You don't like them at all. And Norman Daniels is a character I don't think, I cannot see anyone actually liking his character unless they agree with his way of thinking. He's just such a horrible human being. And I hate to say it, but I feel like it's hard for me to, you know, forgive him for the way he treats Rose, and I think he deserves to go to hell. I can't stand him. So I read a little bit of that. That's slow going, but I'll probably bring that one when we go see my grandma and spend Christmas with her. So I was just thinking last night that there are only 3 more chapters to go in this book and Blood of Elves, and I thought about bringing it with me, and I might still have to bring it with me just to finish it. And I don't mean that as no, I'm not enjoying the book and I don't want to read it. I like the book. It's just there's other books that I'm focusing on. So but I only have 3 more chapters. It's just this is the way the author writes is he doesn't write that many chapters, but they are incredibly long chapters. And I just realized I'm still only on chapter 5. So there's 7 chapters. So there's 3 more to go, but again, they're really incredibly long chapters. So the good news is there's page breaks. So I have this weird thing where I don't like to stop in the middle of a chapter, in the middle of a page. You know, unless there's like a page break, then yeah, I'll stop. But if it's in the middle of it and there's no page break, I don't like doing it unless I just can't keep my eyes open, like I'm reading it in bed or something. So I don't have anything to say. I've just decided to focus on reading a little bit of it the next 2 days, because I don't have to go back to work until Tuesday. And then my next off day won't be until Friday, and then I work on the 21st, but then I don't know if we leave the 23rd or the 22nd. I have to look that up. But, yeah, so we leave either the 23rd or the 22nd to go to my grandma's. So I'm gonna read, my goal today is to try to get chapter 5 read. And read as much, and ideally I'd probably aim for reading as much of chapter 6 as I can today, the next 2 days. Like, maybe get to chapter 6, and or at least start chapter 6 today or tonight or tomorrow. Like I said, it's there aren't as many chapters. Again, only 3 chapters left, but again, they're incredibly long. So, but like I said, now this one is, I really like this one, but it is slow moving. It's slower moving, and it's not as action packed. It's mostly the character of Ciri training. If you read the Sword of Destiny and the Last Wish, then you'll know what I mean by that. Which, by the way, like I said, I feel like you do need at least read Sword of Destiny first, because it does introduce the plot that happens in the rest of the series. But it's mostly her being trained, and right now they're traveling, but it does introduce the conflict, the whole, what's going on politically in this world. And something happens to one of the characters in this first book. But, like I said, not a lot goes on in this book. Oh, and it's also big print, which I really appreciate this. A lot of, I like huge print, so it makes it a little less, because as much as I like buying mass market paperbacks and they're easier to travel with, they do have the minuscule print. Which, I mean, that's why I normally don't bring classics with me, because all my classics are like that. But I think I'm gonna bring, I think I'm still gonna bring Count of Monte Cristo with me so I can get a lot of it done, because I want to read that in the winter time, but I want to read as much as I can before 2020 starts. So like I said, my goal is to finish this one because I want to finish. And although the good news, I think I'll be okay if I don't get to the next book, which is Time of Contempt. I think I'll be okay if I don't get to the second one. If I decide to start watching the series, I think I can still, because from what Daniel Green, YouTuber Daniel Green said, the show will be focusing on the short stories from the information he's gathered on the internet. So I guess I can look it up myself. And then go into this book. So I'll finish this one and then I'll start Time of Contempt in 2020. I prefer saying 2020 over 2020 because then it makes me think of Barbara Walters and that news program 2020. Okay, so I still am going to read some of my library books. I might bring An American Marriage with me too, also with me, and probably A Knight of the Seven Kingdoms. I try to avoid not bringing as many hardbacks, because then it makes my bag heavy. But like I said, I might have to bring some of my library books, and a lot of them are hardback books. Because the library, apparently, they mostly only have hardbacks. I just realized that the other day, that they only have hardbacks. I mean, they don't only have hardbacks, but the library always, a lot of times, has only hardbacks. Because I guess hardbacks are easier to protect than paperbacks. But anyway, so that is what's going on with my reading. Would love to know what's going on with your guys' reading right now. Have you finished a book yet? Would love to hear about it in the comments below. I hope you are, whatever you're reading, whether you've started something new or still reading one that you've been reading for a long time, I hope you are enjoying it. If you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up and click subscribe if you have not already. And I will talk to y'all later. Alright, bye!